one of the things that we've noted the last few years is that we've had reductions in support for certain organisations who help people with benefits advice and those sort of things. So the Citizens Advice and Law Centre, we've had less funding for the advice that was given in the library building, the old hub. I'm just wondering how we know whether we are providing a good service for people who are eligible for benefits, for people who want support in an appeal, because one of the things we do know is that when people appeal against a negative decision in terms of benefits, that they most of the time actually get a positive outcome. So I'm wondering how we actually measure our performance on that to ensure that we really are protecting the vulnerable and giving them their best chance at getting the income that they need.
I mean, there's a lot in that one.
Yes.
And I can't answer it entirely, but there's a couple of things I would say. I mean, in terms of the funding for places like the CAB and the Law Centre, I mean, I think the most significant cut there was not from Kirklees, it was from the government and other sources of funding. There is an agreement with the Law Centre, CAB, Fusion Housing, whereby the council does support them in part, but only in part. And I do think, I know that all those organisations have done their best to continue to provide the benefits advice that they need to, and other organisations besides those, of course. I mean, the Mission and others will be doing the same. But in terms of whether the council is getting it right, I suppose, is what you're asking, that people have to seek advice about not getting some sort of benefit from the council, where they go for that. I mean, it could be a multitude of different places, and whether or not it's our performance in terms of giving them making the right assessment in terms of council tax benefits or housing benefits. I mean, there's so many different parts of the council that are involved in that. And I'll pass over to Andy, because I'm not quite sure whether or not we actually collate all that information in one place, or...
I'm not sure either, to be frank. We would have to look a bit further into that. I mean, it's one of the key priorities within the council plan, and obviously we have a number of measures that are associated with that, but there would be service-specific aspects to that as well. So how effective are our advice provision within both adult social care, but also within the welfare and exchequer service? But we can provide more on that.
I mean, just to come back to say that we wouldn't want not... Well, obviously, we do want to provide the best advice, and perhaps what you're suggesting by bringing all that information together in some way would be beneficial. So perhaps we might look at that.
So just a few thoughts on that. So the sort of KPIs that you might imagine that we could have would be: how many appeals have we supported? How many of those have been successful? Face-to-face advice sessions, because one of the things we do know about face-to-face benefits advice is that is often the most effective advice, because you're able to deal with people on a one-to-one basis. The council does offer benefits advice, and thousands of pounds sometimes have been made available to people because of successful appeals against benefits, sometimes backdated, and so that's money that's brought into not just the people themselves, but comes into the economy of Kirklees. So another KPI might be the amount of money that's come into the economy as a result of action by the council. We also could, as you mentioned, there are other agencies which are acting within this sector. Partner organisation Step by Step does some really great work. They do a session every week at the Newsham Centre, which I'm aware of, and that's becoming more and more successful. I think it would be great for us to actually have a full picture of what's going on here, to see if we are providing a holistic service to some of the people who are on the very lowest of incomes. So that I think there are things more that we could do, and there is something in terms of protecting the vulnerable where we seem to have a bit of a gap in terms of our knowledge, and I'd like to see in the future the council looking at that area to sort of really have a really robust strategy in terms of dealing with poverty and bringing more money into the economy. But actually, when we do that, it also helps the council in terms of its funding, because the government will give more funding to the council if it's got the stats which show that we've got people who are in need. So any reflections on that?
I mean, certainly I can reflect that certainly there are organisations such as KBOP or Fusion, the Mission, but they will all collect information like that. Whether or not we hold that, well, we also have a poverty strategy, or we're looking to develop a poverty strategy, and presumably things like that will all be brought into it. It is a massive task to bring all of that together. Well, it's a massive task. It may be worthwhile to do so. I'm not suggesting it isn't, but I wouldn't want to suggest that things aren't we may not have the knowledge all in one place, but that doesn't mean to say things aren't happening or that the right thing isn't happening. We just haven't got the knowledge of all of it in one place. But I don't know, perhaps Andy can say anything?
No, other than to say the suggestion around the PIs is helpful. We're always looking on a year-on-year basis what would be most effective in terms of our measures and the sources of those. So that's always welcome as input from the committee.
So just to reflect on what you said about not having all that information in one place, that's a weakness, I think, because if we aren't measuring it, we don't know if we're successful or not. And so if we are to have an anti-poverty strategy, then actually all that information does have to be in one place, because we need to be able to be able to see if we're actually making any real progress, because this is a partnership with different organisations, and if it's going to be effective, I mean, we've got the perma-crisis of cost of living that seems to be just something that will always be with us at the moment, unless things fundamentally change. Then I think we definitely need a really robust strategy which measures what we're doing and shows progress, hopefully. Sorry, that sounded... Oh, Councillor Turner.
It's just a thought, is one KPI that could be useful would be the use of food banks. Now, I get that will be really difficult to gather, but if we could do that, that would be useful, wouldn't it? We see whether the numbers are going up or down. That would give us another, if you like, another piece of information. Because if it's going up, there's something wrong. If it's going down, there's still something wrong, because we shouldn't have any food banks. I just wonder whether that will be some sort of indicator that we could see where things are generally going. I get that would be really difficult because there's so many of them, some are small and independent, but whether that, or even just pick a few of the larger ones, that might give us a bit of an indication, just to give us a general trend.
I suppose it might. I mean, I guess the point is more provision good, or is less provision good? Because if food banks aren't needed anymore, like they weren't 20 years ago, does that actually mean that we're in a better place? I argue that it does. If we know that there have been more food banks, there's been a new food bank in Lockwood, a new food bank in Thornton Lodge in the last 12 months that have happened. So and then there's the governance arrangements for different food banks, how they operate, and their referral mechanisms, which is of huge interest. So I get what you're saying, Councillor Turner. I'm just like trying to work out: is it good? Is it bad? And you've got to I mean, I would like to see the end of all food banks because everybody's able to afford their food. But I can see that Councillor Patterson, is wanting to jump in here.
Absolutely, because I do know that information is collected by the food bank network themselves. But as you say, it's fraught with difficulties, not least that some of the food banks refuse to participate. Some of the quite well publicised food banks even do not participate in the network and won't give their information over in terms of where their funding comes from and how many people they're actually helping, which is a shame. I mean, because as you say, I mean, or as Graham says, it would be an indication of. But of course, the indication we really want to see of all of food banks is less of them and less use of them and less necessity. And I would also just, I mean, the cost of living crisis. I mean, or help with the cost of living crisis. That the council is still providing that. Well, as we've already said, there's just so many different aspects to protecting the vulnerable, and it is really, where do you stop? I mean, I don't think it's a weakness that we haven't got that information, because it is where people are using it where it's needed. So we have got that info. It's just not necessarily pulled into one place so that everyone here can look at it. It will be pulled into one place. Where children's services, for instance, perhaps need to look at it in terms of what their future provision is and things like that, which will be different information to what adult services will need. So, but, take your point anyway about looking at how we can bring it together and I mean, certainly in terms of an anti-poverty strategy, it would support that. But in terms of our deliverance of services, I'm pretty sure we've got the right measures in the right places to be able to ensure that we are protecting the vulnerable.
Okay. Andy?